We're good?
Yep.
All right. Can I get a motion to reconvene the committee of the whole meeting of the Proviso Township High School Board of Education? So moved. I'll second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Molinaro? Aye. Mrs. Hickson? Absent. Mr. Ocampo? Aye. Ms. Morris? Aye. Dr. Fisher? Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Smith? Aye. Motion carried.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. At this time, the Board of Education opens the floor for public comments. The board will receive public comment from any individuals present this evening and have submitted a request to address the board for the established procedures. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 230. We believe that all participants in the meeting desire the best outcomes for our students, families, and communities. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and will also be archived and available on the district's website.
We have 2 public comments. Ms. Della Patterson?
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I took a look at your increase in salaries for your administrators. And as a former board member, I do recall, just a little history here, when there was a salary analysis done, 2017, 2018, to try to get people in place. There was another salary analysis done under Dr. Henderson's tenure. When the financial oversight panel was here, one of the things that they agreed to when they were leaving was that we had to have the salary in a certain place. That is why your maintenance custodial staff salary for the new hires is at 32, whatever that amount is, 32,000 and something. When I took a look at these salaries that's listed today, we are extremely top-heavy. I know that was a big issue some time ago about being top-heavy administratively. When I look at your chart, you guys have over 30 administrators. Some of these people's salaries have went anywhere from $17,000 to $27,000 more. I think that'll work for this year. I think that'll work for next year. I suspect it's not going to be sustainable the following year. I think we really need to look at how we're spending money. We don't know how the government is going to continue to do what they're doing. We're going to ask that Dr. Mohib, that you pay close attention to these salaries. I'm looking at this one salary here, and I do recall when this person was hired. I want to say they were at 122, 123, some paperwork I looked at home. They went from that to $150,000. Make it make sense. And I don't think the person is even in the building daily. Last year, this year. So I think it's something that this Board of Education should definitely take a look at, because we're going back to where we were prior to 2017. Thank you and have a great evening.
Next comment will be by Ms. Carissa Gillespie.
Good evening, board and superintendent. My name is Proviso Township, and I'm a teacher, product, and resident of this district. Our schools are moving forward. We are more engaged in the communities of our students, the learning of our students, and the outcomes of our students. There's more work to do, and I'm confident it can get done. Thank you, voters, for trusting each of these BOE members to sit and make the decisions for our schools. Thank you, Board, for trusting Superintendent Mohip to guide and lead our staff in creating processes and platforms for our students. But that trust can't stop at the 5th floor. We have to trust our building principals and their teams to make decisions, especially when it comes to discipline. The community board and superintendent chose these 3 principles to be leaders and make our buildings and students understand that education and accountability must go hand in hand for us to be successful. If you tie the hands of these leaders that you told us you trusted to run the day-to-day operations and demands of their buildings, you have not only handicapped them, you've also handicapped thousands of students and parents' ability to believe that Proviso is capable of providing them with a quality education in a safe environment. You don't tie their hands, you put the power to lead and the accountability in their hands. I know that discipline and consequences can be dirty words in the world of education, but they can't be dirtier than students spitting on educational leaders. I know we worry about the harshness of consequences, but those consequences can be harsher than the racial slurs and you people escaping the lips of students and landing in the face and ears of staff, security, and the board VP. Finally, when I recently inquired about a repeat situation I was dealing with and why I was being funneled through district, I was informed that permission was needed and that the only offenses to be labeled referrals were fights and drugs. I asked why, and I was told that we don't want the state to think we have all these issues. Well, if we don't handle discipline before it gets out of control, we will have all these issues. As far as state reporting, I'll say this to the board and superintendent. I need you to care more about the community that has entrusted our schools and student safety to you, and less about a state entity that watched us drown for several years. Learning, culture, and safety are sacred and require trust in our leaders from the top to the bottom. Free their hands and let them lead. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment. We're going to item number 7, discussion items.
All right, thank you, everyone. So moving in, our first part is around policy discussions. And so I just wanted to give a brief update on the naming policy. So we have sent draft policies to our members on the team. We'll be reaching out to set up another meeting. We're aiming for October 13th. I'm passing around a draft policy, and this is draft in case you're not sure, because it is still a Word document. But essentially having some conversation around, and really thoughts around, when we're naming a building, like what is it that we should do, and what parameters should we put in place? And then if there's any conversations around any future meetings of spaces. And so we've looked at this policy, we've shared this policy with the members. They've given some feedback to me through emails. I've updated that, and then we'll meet again on the 13th. And what we're looking to do is, if we get to a space, now this could all change depending upon how our next meeting goes, but if we get to a space where we're ready to bring to this Board of Education the policy, we'll do a first reading at the October 14th meeting, a second reading on November 11th, and ask for approval on December 9th. If for some reason we don't get to that space by October 14th, we'll just push this another month, and then we would be able to move to approvals by January, for the January 14th. Any questions? In regards to student board members, and so I know this is a conversation we've had with this Board of Education in the past. I think it's something we're moving forward with, or we want to move forward with. So under Illinois School Code, this is something that we are able to do. Students may not be involved in closed sessions or types of voting, but they can be advisory. And I think we do want our students to be part of the voice as we're making decisions around the future of the district. We will put a policy together, and we'll follow that same timeline. I'll bring something to you for review on October 14th, November 11th, and December 9th. This will not be, work with IASB and our legal team to bring you that policy. And when we're thinking about student selections, this is something that I've talked with you in the past, and again, reaffirmed with our activity directors at each of the schools. We have student council members, and we have student councils at each school. These are students that are involved and interested already in governance. We think that that's the right pool of students to go to, and let them identify who they want to serve on the board as a student board member, and then they can go back to their student council, right, and report out on I think for this first year, if we're not getting to a space where we're having a board member join until January, we'll have that person join from January and then roll them through the entire year. And then moving forward, as we get into the school year 26-27, have that student member serve a full term. And so that's the direction we're going. In addition, though, we need to make sure that we're also then taking these 3 students and training them in the space. Jen and I were part of the state board. We have student advisory council, and we spent significant time training those students and giving them opportunities to learn about leadership, about governance before they join, and then also during their time on the school. Any questions about this?
So each school student council governs the point of representative.
Right.
Okay.
And that's something we'll make clear in the policy. Moving on to finance items, Dr. Hill has an update on the proposed levy that we'll be introducing at the next board meeting.
Good evening, everyone. What I am passing out is the actual presentation that I will present at the October 14th board meeting. It is our estimated tax levy. So I do have a couple of slides that I will share with you today. So for the tax levy, the levy request, this is what we're asking, this is not the extension, but our levy request is $78.6 million overall. This would be a 2.9 increase from the prior year. Last year we were at 3.4%, so it is lower. It captures the maximum allowable growth under the CPI, which is at 2.9. This will be the lowest ask that we're requesting since 2021. And the major allocations that encompasses this request will be $60 million that will go towards the educational fund, about $12 million going towards operations and maintenance, and then transportation at $5 million. So this ask will support our fund reserve balance, which we have per board policy, we must maintain at least 33%. And then it also supports our staffing, programming, and facility needs. Are there any questions? The next one, which I think is really important, is what would be the impact to the taxpayer? Because there are many questions that individuals ask in the community. Is that shown up? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so this is what the impact will be. This is based on a $300,000 market value home, okay? Again, we mentioned that the estimated tax levy will be a 2.9% increase from the prior year. But the estimated annual increase for our homeowners in the area based on that market value home will be about $52 extra per year for their tax bill, which will equate to about $4.33 a month. So again, this is homes above or below that $300,000 threshold. But again, these balances district financial stability with minimal taxpayer impact, because we do want to make sure that our that we're not asking for too much, or there would be an issue with our homeowners. Any questions with the tax, the 2.9? The annual increase? Yes, ma'am.
Did you say this would only affect homeowners in the value over?
No, this reflection is based on a $300,000. So if you're not there, it will be lower. But this is always a good slide that I like to add, because people want to know what would be the impact with this 2.9 increase. And so just for historical purposes, last year the ax was 3.4%, and then in fiscal year 22, fiscal year 23, the ax was at 5%. So this year we're just asking for their basic CPI, the minimum at 2.9.
So the CPIU, that was coming out of the department of December of 2024, they came up with 2.9% rate. And we aligned to that because we just want to, essentially, we're just trying to keep up with inflation, right? And so we know costs are going up, we know salaries are going up, and if we don't raise, then we're going to have less power for our district to continue the things that we're doing this year. And so this is just an opportunity to grow, but we're also trying to be responsible and respectful of our taxpayers because we know that costs are going up for everybody, right? It's not just their taxes, it's their groceries, it's their utility bills. And so while we understand while it's just maybe $52 for the year, it's still additional dollars. So we are still trying to do something.
I know we've had, and I don't know if this is the right placeholder for this conversation, but the last couple of meetings we've had residents talk about TIF districts and the connection with those tax dollars coming to us. So is there, I'm learning. So yeah, so like talk to us about
The impact of TIF districts on this.
correct.
So
Or save it for another conversation if we need.
No, we can talk briefly.
Okay.
Right, so right now we do have this Hillside District 93 and the Village of Hillside and Proviso. So we have what we call the Proviso Township Consortium, where we get together at least quarterly and we talk about like the property, the taxes that take place in the area, our key tax. And so in reference to the tips for this area, right now, we're okay. You know, there are some districts, there are some areas in our community whereby we're not getting the most of what we should, but that's why it's important for us to go to the meetings, when the Village of Maywood has a meeting, when the Village of Hillside have a meeting, just so we can see what that impact will be for Proviso.
Well, we're living in the ecosystem of community, right?
Yeah.
We understand
But it's
that.
communities.
We understand that some communities need to repurpose some of those tax dollars for projects that they want to reinvest in their community. That should hopefully lead to a higher tax base later on. And so with the TIF, the TIF is a 23-year, essentially, we're making an alteration to the amount of funds that we're getting. And under law, you are allowed to ask for renewals. You're able to ask for 2 renewals. And so each renewal is 12 years. And so we do have to take a look at any new TIFs that are coming in. What is that impact going to be on us? And is it something that we can stomach so that we know that we can help provide for our communities?
What I can provide you is a list of the tips that we do have.
I was just about to
There you go.
put it in my mind.
So-
Just a
right. So you
snapshot
can have
of
a
what
sense.
we have currently, and if anything happens in the future,
Right.
we at least have a.
So there are
overview.
some that we have had in the area that fell off the rolls and they're like back on now. But then we do have some more, so it's probably about 7 to 10 in the area that we have. And so I can share that list with you, so then you can see what that impact is for Proviso.
And I know that there have been some people that have come and voiced concerns about some TIFs that are being proposed. But as of right now, I haven't seen any of the financial impacts. So we're waiting to see. We're waiting to get more information. And
But it is something we need to approve.
it will be something that comes here
Okay.
for approval. Yes. And so it's not at the stage in any of those newer TIF areas that has come to us.
Question. When the tips do come in, like the ones we have now, let's say for instance one of those were new for this coming year, we've already approved it. With this estimated like $52 increase for households, if that tip goes into place in let's say so many area, will that increase the amount the other taxpayers are now having to change from the $52 to let's say $62? Because
Different tax.
I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding. Okay.
It could, in future years, we might ask for more dollars, which other communities may have to. take on that. I
Take
don't want to say
on
burden.
the loss that we're
They
experiencing.
capture that.
Cut the loss.
So we
I
get
got it right.
that levy amount wherever it needs to come from. Non-chip.
Not the area.
But it says you cannot.
Yep.
Because they have that
Yep.
period.
Because that goes into their tip kitty.
That's
Yep.
correct.
All right,
I got it right.
thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, moving on is the transportation update. So we have a
Good
question
evening.
around some metrics.
Good evening, everyone. Just the orientation, we're gonna start with Proviso East on the far left. Proviso East has 13 routes. On the far left, you'll notice 100, 116. That is the ridership that has been supported for each route. And on the far right, where it says students, and that number 28 and 26, so on and so forth. Those are the amount of students that are riding that bus on an average month. A few days of those months could be 32, a few days could be 26, but the average is 28 for PE1, 26 for PE2, with a total number of students monthly, daily riding the bus at Proviso East of 348 students. Total amount of students, 2,013 for Proviso East. That is roughly about 30% of students are riding transportation in the AM routes for Proviso East High School. Proviso West has 22 routes through PW1 through PW2. On the far left, the 87 and 107. On the far right, in red, 38 and 52. Those are the numbers that are average for those routes. 348 students are riding at Proviso West. And the count on the routes, the whole 22 routes, is 2225. Proviso West did get started a little late than Proviso East and Math and Science Academy. First student is eager to give us updated information. They have promised to give us updated information tomorrow. Is tomorrow the first? I believe it is.
Yes.
We will have that information to share with Mr. Mohip and Dr. Alvarez. Moving on to PMSA, 169 students should be routing PMSA number 1, 139 for PMSA 2, so on and so forth. We have 242 students out of 1,148. That 1148, that 2225, and 2013, those are numbers that has been given to first student to route. I do believe that number is elevated a bit. I do believe the number at West is probably about 1,700, 1,650. I believe the number at PMSA is roughly 950, and the number over Proviso East is roughly 1,400. Any questions about the routes and the ridership?
No question, but a comment, just overall, ridership is less than 25%.
So if you, Mike, can you open up Proviso
That's
East?
the column on the right, that's your ridership.
Percent-wise, like,
Potential number of students.
East is
Because the,
17, West is 15, PMSA is 20.
Even with the numbers he just gave, that would be lower.
So I believe those numbers are elevated.
Okay.
Can you enlarge it just a bit?
so are these students that at the beginning of the year say, yes, I want to ride the bus, and then don't?
There's no option out.
There is no, these are just the potential.
We're required by law to provide busing transportation to any student beyond a certain distance. And so those are the students that are assigned a bus now. If they choose to take it or not, we can't tell them to take a bus.
So
But we have to be able to provide services to them. Now, we're not sharing ridership, and then from that ridership, we create our routes. And so we're only going to places where students need to be picked up. But we still, I mean, this is the number of students that legally must legally provide transportation.
Okay, but there is an opportunity at the beginning of the year, like there is in our district, to say, I'm raising my hand for my son to ride the bus or whatever.
But we have discussed it, I know Dave and I brought it up for a few
But,
years.
but even though we're paying, even though the ridership is around 25%, right? We're not paying for 100% and only getting 25%. What we're paying for is what we are actually providing busing. So if ridership would go up, then we would be paying more money for transportation. because we would be adding routes, we'd be adding buses, and so, this list would grow for the amount of students. If you look at the amount of students that are on the buses, there are very few that are less than 5, right? And so, the ridership on the buses are, fairly strong, right?
Do we have bicycle riders, walkers?
Do we do what?
Bicycle riders? Do we have appropriate, like, people who would ride their bikes to school?
We have
Do kids still do this?
We do.
Okay.
We have bike racks, right?
Okay, so we have enough bike racks.
Crossing guards,
Okay.
we're doing all of those.
And remember, it's still warm outside, so a lot of students are still riding bikes, they're carpooling with family members. When it gets cold outside, ridership is gonna take up.
Okay.
And maybe that's something we could report out in a couple of months, as the budget does change to see what.
So just for your reference here, this is a route. You'll see where it says route on the upper left-hand corner. It says PE01, and it gives you the pickup location, the pickup time, and it gives you an amount of students at each one of those stops that should be there. We have a form for East, West, and Science Academy. It is quite extensive, so I will not go through it unless you guys want me to. All right. Mike.
Are we
Are we
able
good?
to find some stops? Because I was looking at those and it's like 2 blocks away.
Yeah, the main reason for that is we're trying to provide a reasonable walking distance for students from their home to the stop. So the goal was like 2 to 3 blocks. There's a few students that's walking 6 to 7 blocks, and we're trying to better that with per student. But we don't believe walking half a mile is safe when it starts to get dark outside at 3:30.
What are you wondering? I was just wondering.
Next slide. Transportation metrics, success rate. We have had some hard conversations with first student early on. Most of these issues are first student issues. The main reason is first student got to a slow start with getting our students ridership locations. So over at Proviso East, we had roughly 8 buses that was continually getting to stops about 8 to 12 minutes. 8 to 12 minutes late. So that caused a rift where parents were, hey, how much longer for the bus? What we normally do is we get in front of those parents, we show them how to use the app, we show them how to use the first new location, add in their school, also school code, so they can actually follow the bus. And we ask first student to push out a notification on First View app to let parents and students know that the bus is running 4 to 5 minutes late. First student did have about 45% new bus drivers this year. They did do a mock run the first 2 weeks before school, but obviously it wasn't enough to get the drivers well versed in the neighborhoods. Over at Proviso West, we had 3 consistent late routes, 8 to 10 minutes. This work has been remedied. We have monthly meetings with them. We're out in the communities every morning. We're at Triton for the Triton drop-off for first student. Joey, who is our transportation manager, he's out in the field taking notes, having meetings every day with first student. Myself and Sergio Niola, we're doing the same thing. Moving on to math and science, we noticed that PMSA number 5, the ridership was really high. So in order to shift that, they added students to bus number 6 at PMSA. And the long-term goal is to add an additional PMSA 5, call it 5A and 5B. We shared this with the building principals and administrative staff, but they're waiting on one driver to finish next month, and he or she will be put on that PMSA bus number 5B to give some relief for bus number 6. But as we speak, there is no overcrowdedness.
Yeah, I was told October 1st was when it was supposed to start.
Yeah, but he has some issues with passing his test, so they retested him. So it's always something. They have a plan for it. Also, we want to make sure that everyone understands the process. It is a heavy lift in the morning. When you have parents calling, we do answer the calls that we can, but the calls that we cannot, we use Ring Central AI. Ring Central AI sends an instantaneous email to Joey D. Leon's email address, The ones he cannot get to right away, you grab his phone in real time in the field and get back to parents accordingly. We are actively asking him to compile that list because we want to know who those parents are, what bus routes, what that issue was, so we can get rid of some of these problems. Also, we did have about 150 calls for the first 10 or 12 days of school, from August 14th to August 29th. Most of those calls were, what time the bus is going to stop, where's my location. We're explaining to parents that they please go on the Power School, and explaining to them that Power School information is on the district website, so that they can have all the information that they needed to make sure that they can understand the location and get their student to the location 5 minutes early, because that is the ask of our student, that our students are there 5 minutes early. Obviously, there's some hanging chads in the community when there's traffic, and of course, when there's driver errors, making a wrong turn or a car blocking the intersection. So that has happened a few times, and we make sure we get in front of the administrative staff and let them know. But arriving to school has been on time. They've been getting to school at least 14 to 15 minutes prior to. And we want to make sure that happened because we want students to get a hot breakfast, have time to go to their lockers, and also circulate through the building to do whatever they need to do to get their day started. Any questions about the success ridership?
LT, when we're telling parents to check Power School for their route, we're being specific to tell them to check the web-based version, not the app, because you cannot get your bus route on the app.
Right, so most of the time it is either on the phone or either out in the field when they see us on the bus stop. So we have to get our smartphones and show them exactly what we need to do, how we need to do it. So that's been working out well. A lot of parents are pleased with that. And we do plan to create, Mr. Mohip, a video. We've been working with Michael Swanson and Joey to get a video in English and Spanish so we can get parents that information too.
Just to kind of, sorry, to bounce off LT's point, I've been meeting with Power School. It's not just us that can't put it on the mobile app, it's a Power School thing, but they did just release a new app version that we could move to, so that we could do, because I know 90% of our parents and students are on their phones.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that to get that integrated as quickly as possible.
Awesome.
But there's functionality with Ring Central, is that what it's called? Is that, so that's real time information on lateness, etc. Okay.
We tested it today about 3:30 with Joey, and I left the voicemail saying my bus is late, and he got it within like 9.5 seconds.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the Proviso West Fieldhouse, we need to repeat the lines.
So over at Proviso West, we are fortunate to have one of the best tracks in the western suburbs. It was restriped back in 2018, and now is the time to think about getting it restriped to ensure that we have proper lines for track, basketball, PE, and other events that the district would like to host in that space. So this is just an information item right now. We plan to put this out for bid, work with the business office, and make a recommendation at a later date. Over at Proviso East, we have some concrete curb replacement and also some sidewalks at door number 2 and door number 4. This is going to help pedestrians get into the building faster and safer. This is actively out for bid as we speak, and we're hoping to get bids in, I believe, October 13th or 15th with a recommendation to the superintendent of schools. Proviso East and West, the upper administration staff and also the building level administration staff would like to add some additional security scanners at East and West to expedite student entry in the morning. We do believe this is needed because we had a serious issue over at Proviso West with a backlog of students, about 70 to 80 at a time, and we just did not have enough equipment to get them in the space. So this will be bidded out also. We're working with the IT department to see if we can upgrade the software that's been spec'd, and at a later date, you will see an action item to the superintendent of schools for recommendation.
So currently there's only one entry point because of where the scanners are at each school?
No, so East, there's 2 entry points. Door number 1, I believe door number 8 or 9, which is on the south side of the building. At West, it's legitimately 2 entry points, but the machines are stacked right on top of each other. But the good thing about that is security can see both ways, so you don't need as much manpower there to manage that in the morning. The problem is when you get one of the buses that's coming from the heavy ridership locations that has 48 students on them, and two buses pull up, now you got 96 students trying to get in the building in less than 12 minutes, that becomes a problem.
Okay.
We believe this third machine will help with that traffic.
So we know that our first period attendance is often. We have a lot of late students. A lot of the time, the kids are in the class, the kids are in the building, but we're trying to get through security. We don't want to rush security. We want them to do their job. We want them to do it efficiently and make sure all students coming in are doing so without any paraphernalia that they shouldn't. And so, it could take 15 to 20 minutes for a student to get dropped off to get to the class. So we're hoping that this speeds up. We were looking at, we look at as much data as we can. We noticed we have the highest rate of tardies in first period and absences, and we also have the highest failing rate for our courses during first period as well. So we're hoping that this is going to help.
The Proviso West corridor lighting and also classroom lighting. We're blessed over at Proviso East High School to spend over $100 million here in the last 4 or 5 years. All of the corridors and in most of the classrooms, all the lighting's been upgraded with daylight prevention devices, and it's beautiful here. And we're trying to be equitable and provide some type of new lighting fixtures over at Proviso West. We did finish over on the B wing and the science wing to give the district an idea of what it would look like. It looked beautiful in that space. So speaking with Mr. Christian and Mr. Mohib, we wanted to see what a unit cost would cost us to do some corridors and a few classrooms. We plan to put this out for bid relatively soon and see what that cost comes in at. We'll make a recommendation to the superintendent of schools.
I'm sorry?
Where's the sign?
That is the B hall.
B hall.
Yep, first floor B hall. If you go in there, you'll see I don't know when you guys did that, but you updated the hallway and the lights and
Science labs too.
And it gives a very nice look.
I believe this is the last item, emergency evacuation chair lifts. We believe that it'll bring a lot of value to add in one of these chairs at each one of the top of the stairwells or in the middle of the stairwells. Obviously, we will work with first responders in the district to make sure we have them in the proper locations before we install them. We would like to put 10 at East, 10 at West, and replace the 2 existing ones at Math and Science Academy, just to make sure that we have proper equipment to get people out of the building who cannot use stairs in the event that we have an emergency.
So this next one, we're not 100% sure what we're doing, but I just wanted to flag it and I just wanted to bring you up to date on this. So at Proviso West, they have stairs, the things you sit on, you kind of just go up slowly. Hasn't worked for quite a while. And so we're looking at the cost of that, right? But also the conversation, the questions we're having, we'll talk to legal, is would the evacuation chairs suffice for what the need is? Because this would be a costly upgrade, probably close to $200,000 to make these functional again. But it's something that's not often used. We have elevators, right, in all of our buildings. This would be, in the event that you can't use an elevator and somebody needs to get downstairs, right, in an emergency, especially, do we need to do this or would the evac chair suffice? And so this is something that, I just wanted to bring to your attention because we weren't 100% sure if we're going to move forward in this direction, but we just wanted to be able to call it out.
So the difference is with an evacuation chair, there's a team that walks.
So an evacuation chair, typically you leave it at the top stairwell. If they're at the top of the stairwell, if the student needs to use it, it kind of has like track wheels. So a student could go in it and it's very easy to just go step by step.
Oh,
It's not on like circular wheels.
okay.
So it goes down.
It's not a
Yeah,
track.
sure.
It's like an escalator in a
Okay.
chair, slow motion.
Versus a lift, which is more mechanical and needs more upkeep and.
Right.
Okay.
But now at Proviso East, we do need to look at providing a new lift. So when you think, if you've been in the gymnasium, there's like one of those open air elevators, I guess is the best way to describe it. That is not working. So the platform. And so that's not working, so that is something that is going to fix. It's difficult for people with disabilities to get into the gym. And then Mike, LT's off the hook, so Mike has one update for one information item for October.
All right, so this is for FCC pilot program for cybersecurity. We kind of try to keep you guys updated through the board weekly updates, but again, very excited we were chosen. There was only 700 schools chosen in the United States out of this to receive $200 million. So out of that $200 million, we received $187,000 for the cybersecurity pilot program. Essentially what it is the FCC funding currently covers network infrastructure for, but doesn't cover cybersecurity, which is what everyone's been complaining about for years, saying that you need to cover it. So we got part of that pilot program and met with our VCSO and with a couple other people that manage our infrastructure and figured out the best way to utilize this funding. So we posted an RFP that was looking for an MDR SOC solution, which is managed detection, response, and security operations center. So what they would be doing is overseeing all of our devices, all of our accounts, 24/7 for any alert that comes in, responding using a playbook, so to speak, containing the threat, and then passing it off to us to let us know what action was taken. What that is the main part of this RFP that I was focused on is because this is a pilot program, I didn't want to go out there and say, hey, we had this great cybersecurity for 3 years. Oh, the pilot program went away. Now we can't afford it. So the cybersecurity, the RFP really focused on something that would be sustainable moving forward. So while this does have the net monthly cost of $6,000, it is less when you take out the professional services, the project amount and such. So basically the way I was looking at it is what would be best should this funding not reoccur in 3 years. There were solutions that were cheaper, there were solutions that were more expensive, but we went through the decision matrix and came up with the solution that would best support us and best put us in a good path for funding decisions that we're unsure moving forward. Any questions?
So the net monthly cost of that $6,000 is what we'll incur in 3 years?
So basically, yeah, that would be our monthly bill. We'll get reimbursed out of that $229,000. We get reimbursed up to $187,000, but pretty much that amount. And then so we're on the hook for roughly $40,000 over 3 years. And then what that cost is going to be lower after the third year because we wouldn't have that project cost. That huge upfront area where they're doing all the integration, all the onboarding, all that stuff is the huge lift. Where if we can incur that with this grant money, that's great, and then we're set up for success where we could possibly then even get it after 3 years and say, you know what, we don't need somebody else to manage this, we can do it ourselves. We already have the infrastructure in place, we've been doing this for 3 years. So it would be much lower than that. But that was kind of the thought process of it because it's a pilot program. Yep.
One last facility item, I'll take it. And so this thing will work.
Oh, did I click? Sorry. Very good.
So this is a conversation. So we have been doing a practice of propping open our bathroom doors. We do this because we want line of sight into the bathrooms to make sure that there's no inappropriate behavior happening within those bathrooms. It's a place where we know that sometimes there'll be some fights, sometimes there'll be some students vaping, and so that has been our past practice. Our past practice is not in accordance with state law, right? So we did have an inspection. We did pass the inspection, right? Totally upfront, because we took all the door props in. We had 2 fights in the bathrooms. And so there were 2 issues in the bathrooms that day. We talked with legal. There have been other schools that are doing this. It's the conversation and something we're considering is just removing the doors from the bathrooms, right? But before we move any door from the bathroom, there's a couple of things that we need to make sure. First, we need to make sure that in those bathrooms that we have working stalls in every bathroom, and that there is no line of sight to the urinals when those doors are removed. And so we're going through right now, we're auditing every single bathroom. I'm just letting you know, our plan is to remove these doors. We think it's the right thing to do. It helps create safety in the building, support our students, support our staff. But we will not remove a door in the event that they don't have working stalls or if there's line of sight. Like, we still know that students need their privacy, we want to respect that privacy, but we also want to ensure safety. In any school, bathrooms are one of the hardest places to monitor. You know, we extensively train our security guards to be in those bathrooms, especially during the casting periods. But, you know, there is some inequity there because we need to have more male security guards than female security guards. And so, you know, there's always that room. So this is something that we've seen other schools do. I've seen new builds of schools that don't have bathroom doors, even as part of the planning. And so this is the direction. Are there any questions?
I have a question. As you know, the audit, if you notice that there are non-working stalls, are we going to then look at
Fixing them.
fixing them and making sure?
Yeah, I think students need that privacy. I don't think we have any bathrooms without working stalls, correct? I know there's maybe a few that are damaged, they all work.
They're all operating.
This is their option, not management.
Well, that should have never been an option. Yeah. And so we know that was a practice that was happening in one of our schools, they would lock the doors. We took that option away.
Nope.
All right, so we do want to provide I will say a brief, Jen, you and Olivia, a brief update on our Proviso instructional framework. I know that some of the board members have been going into the schools and being in the classrooms, and I love that. I'd love for you to see what we're seeing so you have an understanding of the work that we're trying to do. Hopefully you're seeing changes over time. But I thought it'd be a good opportunity to provide you with a brief training or explanation on what we just trained our teachers on. So this is the work that we plan to be doing over the next 15 to 20 weeks, focused around focused instruction, which is essentially modeling is another term for it. But I don't know if Jen or Olympia is presenting, but I'll let you guys take it.
I'll start us off and Olivia can jump in as needed to rescue me if I misstep here. And so as Krish mentioned, on our early release Institute Day last Thursday, Olympia, our lovely Director of Instructional Framework and Support, who you met at the last board meeting we had, led teachers from all 3 campuses through an in-person, interactive professional development that focused on these objectives that you see here, which are all related to the Proviso instructional framework. And as a reminder, the Proviso instructional framework, which we've seen and talked about before, is based on the gradual release of responsibility approach, which essentially breaks down the lesson into these 6 phases that you see here, starting with learning objective and culminating with daily content assessment. And in terms of our rollout, we have decided that we're going to take a whole year to roll this new framework out, one piece at a time. And that is to provide lots of opportunities for meaningful and job-embedded professional learning for all teachers to ensure that they get the support to meet our newly heightened expectations in terms of instruction. And so to speak to the piece that we are beginning to work on now, that focused instruction, we reminded teachers of why this phase is so important with this quote from Fisher and Frey, which really says it best. And I'll just read the highlighted part. The key to quality teaching is explaining. Students need an explanation of their teachers' cognitive processes and metacognitive thinking. So this is the phase of instruction where teachers, metaphorically, open their brains and show their expert thinking to the students so that students can eventually emulate that thinking and apply it to new problems and in new contexts. So it's critically important that this happen well and that this happen with real attention to not just the what of what is being learned, but the how. And so Proviso teacher leaders last spring, as you know, collaboratively developed this instructional framework and set forth clear and common language to define what excellence in this phase, in this focused instruction really looks like. And that starts with the teacher making the thinking process visible. It also includes the use of anchor and process charts to provide additional visual supports to students as they are learning new complex processes. It further describes how the teacher actively models their own expert thinking in action, again with the focus on the how and not just the what. It's really important in all subject areas, but it's especially critical in some that we've historically struggled with, according to our data: reading, writing, mathematical thinking, those sorts of sort of key underlying thinking processes that are really necessary to eventually approach more advanced topics. And before we, in addition to this new emphasis on focused instruction, we also knew from our walkthrough data that there was still more work to be done in terms of developing teacher capacity to write learning objectives that meet the framework standards for what a high quality learning objective is, and to design formative assessments that are really assessing skills at the level of the standards and at appropriate levels of rigor. So we went back and reinforced what we had been doing during the first learning cycle, using this depth of knowledge framework as sort of a new entry point and a new way of looking at that work, which they had already been doing, to elevate the practice. And we provided examples of what expectations for students look like at each depth of knowledge level based on a real learning standard. There were several examples in the deck. Believe it or not, this is a pared down deck, what you're getting now. But what I want to emphasize here is that even if you can't read all of the details of the activities, from one learning standard that is less than a line long, you can have all of these different levels of thinking. And so if we are inadvertently not attending to this and keeping our students at level 1 activities, and then they are later being assessed on level 3 and 4, there's a misalignment there, and we're really not setting students up for success. So we did some, Olympia really did some deep work on this on that day last Thursday. From there, we moved to sort of the next step of using that depth of knowledge framework to define what success criteria look like. And so here's an example, this time from English Language Arts. And then when you put all those pieces together, you get what we have collectively decided we're looking for a proviso learning objective. And you can see sort of by the different coloration how a proviso learning objective has 3 parts. The first part, simply put, the first part that you see there in black is the what. This is what students will be able to do, and then there is a why, and then there is a how. And so the why is the in order to, and the how is what comes after the why. And that's where that success criteria and the depth of knowledge analysis is so important to get this right.
And so I'll just add, what we were doing in this district prior to our new go-round was what the students would be able to meet in order to. The buy is a newer part of our learning objective. And the buy really gets to the heart of what is it that we're asking students to do? How do you show mastery? How do you show what you've learned in a tangible way? And then you can look at that and see they're identifying, right? So we can go back to the depths of knowledge and see that, identifying could be, I think it's a level 3 or level 2, right? And so what we're trying to do is move away from the basic recall of the depths of knowledge, which is level 1, and pushing them to level 3 and level 4, because that's what's going to be uneasy, right? So I'm not a big believer in test prep, but I am a strong believer in the daily lesson and the work that students are doing in every single class, every single day, is a match of the rigor that they'll be assessed for later on in the spring. And so this is how we're starting to move our teachers in that direction, to make sure every single day we are asking our students to engage in meaningful and powerful work. Sorry, Jen.
And so as Chris said, part of that process is being really intentional about how we design daily formatives, which are really just pulse checks that teachers do to understand how students are actually doing with their learning relative to that objective that's been set for the day. So, there we go. And so this is an example of what the whole process looks like together, from standard all the way to formative assessment, which in this case is sometimes referred to as an exit ticket, and that's what you see there on the slide. But you see you go from standard to just the basic what. The success criteria helps you to get to the full Proviso learning objective, and then from there, you do some additional work to get to an assessment, a daily assessment that is aligned. And this is what we practiced with teachers, and they were looking at standards from their own content areas, and practicing this and giving each other feedback with the support of their department chairs, etc. And then finally, we spent time, as we said, moving into focused instruction. And this becomes much easier when you have a strong objective and a strong set of success criteria and a well-defined formative assessment. Because you really understand what you're teaching and what you're going to expect kids to do to show mastery, it then becomes much easier to figure out what you're going to do as a teacher to model that and to make that thinking visible. And so again, teachers were able to go into depth with Olympia and with their department chairs on all of the pieces of what focused instruction looks like. And they were able to spend time in their department teams doing collaborative design and practice and giving and receiving feedback. But in reality, all of this work last Thursday, which I've just given you a 9-minute version of what was 2.5 hours. So there's a lot of interactive work built in. And it's really just the beginning of a learning cycle that's going to take us several weeks. And through that learning cycle, the school improvement team provides support, obviously in very close collaboration with the building leaders, but especially to department chairs and to teacher teams as they continue this learning by practicing, by planning, by practicing, by giving and receiving feedback, and ultimately by refining their practices and then reflecting on their learning and thinking about how they can leverage that into future learning as we enter the next cycle, which will be guided practice and then eventually collaborative practice and so on through the phases of the framework. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So when we did the rollout of the learning objectives, which was our first cycle, it took about 5 weeks, right? And we got to a point where about 80 to 85% of our teachers that are level 3 or higher. So we did pretty successful with that. That was one of the more easier ones. And so to Jen's point, Dr. Kermis's point, the learning objective really helps you set up for a good focused lesson. If you don't get this focused lesson correct, the rest of your lesson is going to fall apart, right? And what we're trying to do with this, it's not that we're getting our teachers to teach less, we're getting them to try and talk less and shift that cognitive flow. So what you need to do before you can make that shift is you need to show them specifically what it is that they're expected to do, and then the supports that they need. The last thing after a focus lesson, you don't want your students shouldn't start asking questions like, what should I do next, right? The model should be on the board. The learning objective is there. The anchor chart or the process chart is there. And they're working in groups at this point, right? So before they go back and ask the teacher, hey, what should I do next? They have all of these guides, and they have their peers, right? We want to build that interdependence with their class, so that the teacher is not the person delivering that instruction or answering the questions. We're trying to get our students to engage in meaningful work that they productively struggle through, but then get to success by the end of the class. And when you design a lesson that is so structured, so scripted, and so granular, that we're trying to teach that one skill that's part of the standard that we're holding towards mastery at some point, see it right away. But when you're in those classrooms in December and in January, what you should see is these focused lessons lasting maybe 10 to 15 minutes, so that the rest of the class and students are engaging in this group work or in this. But we're not just sending them off. right? And this is why we're calling it the Proviso framework, but it's built around this concept of a gradual release. And so at this stage, the teacher is holding everything, and then we're giving them all the tools and knowledge and skills so that we can release it to them and eventually have them do it all. Any questions about any of that?
Has there been any pushback?
There was some on the learning on our first learning cycle.
I haven't heard this.
No, I didn't hear of any pushback. We did survey the teachers. There was very few teachers that felt, well, a lot of teachers felt they were doing this already. A lot of teachers felt that after the training that they were ready to try this. And there was maybe in single digits that said they needed more support. We could share that.
In general, it was very good feedback. I try just to recall right now the comments. I didn't see any comment about just be pushing back on this. It was more about critical feedback and how to get the support. So I personally was very, very excited about what they communicated. Started going to some department meetings this week, and they were talking about it. They were talking about the anchor chart. So I could see that they were walk away thinking about this. So.
And I think that's reflective of the fact that we took the time last year to have the teachers develop this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not something that we're given to them. This is something they essentially gave to us through those facilitated conversations. This is how those teams decide. Like, this is how they define instruction and what they want to see here in class. And so now, this is not some top-down administrative district thing. The district is taking control of the rollout and making sure the supports are there, but it's based upon something that we came together to agree upon and really was led by our teachers.
The implementation is it's really challenging, and that is a place where schools often, where initiatives don't have the greatest impact not because the initiative is wrong, but rather because it is the attention and effort that it takes to support adults in learning to do something differently is really intensive. And so it's work that is going to take all of us on the school improvement team and in terms of the building leadership and teacher leaders, all of us really working together. So that's big.
Any questions? So I just want to talk briefly about discipline. I know we already had a conversation about this. Just want to walk through it quickly. So the purpose of discipline, we are not interested in just removing students to remove students, right? Discipline, in any form that it takes, is supposed to be trying to help students understand what it is they did wrong, repair harm, and then also, build the skills so that when they encounter the same problem in the future, they make better decisions. And so while a student may fight once, our hope is that student does not fight again, because we've been able to then provide consequence and essentially give them the tools that they need to one, de-escalate, and to make better decisions so they don't end up being physical. That's the case. As you know, and we talked about, we have updated our student code of conduct, student rights and responsibility document. We'll make sure to provide a link to that in our next weekly update, so you guys can look through that. And it really is then set into 3 different levels, levels 1, 2, and 3. And it's those things that are in the level 3 is that leads to out-of-school suspensions. And while we do try to reduce the amount of out-of-school suspensions, I think every school is trying to do that with the issuance of the SB 100. We're not stopping schools, and we're not stopping principals from making the decisions that they need to know. As recent as today, as we discussed, had conversations with principals to give principals more autonomy to make the decisions they need, while also reassuring us, 1, that we know about the discipline, and 2, all the steps all steps are being taken to make sure that the suspensions are done correctly. And as I reminded you, we have gone through 2 trainings with our staff already. Well, I guess 3. We do have a referral process in place, and so teachers do have a system in Power School where they can go in and put in any student referral. We are checking to see if the referrals are being reviewed and if they're being closed out by our administrators. It is a clunky system, right? I was with a principal today, showing me these things, but it is a system that we have. We're continuing to look for other systems that we could possibly use for referrals, but we also want to make sure that that system works with policy. And so, it will continue to be something that we're looking at. We're hearing from teachers, we're hearing from deans that it is clunky. It does take some time. I do think that as we spend more time in it, we'll get better with it. We'll move faster along. But we also need to make sure that we are documenting. Right? If it's not in Power School, if it's not documented in some way, it's essentially doesn't exist. And I am not afraid of what our discipline numbers may show. Right? I do expect that we are going to see significantly more, and when the reports come out, there's going to be more discipline because we did a better job last year of documenting. And so we're going to see an increase in out of school, we're going to see an increase in school, because I remember last year working with Alex, working with Bill and the team, and Mike, to make sure that everything was getting documented and working with our administrators. So, at the end of the day, a report may say something, but what really matters is what's happening in our schools. And that's what I'm most concerned about. And I will tell you from the qualitative impact or data that I have of being in schools, I am seeing much calmer buildings than what I walked into last year. And so I know many of you have been in the schools. I hope you've seen the same things at wider halls. Phones are not in the hands of students, and students seem to be more engaged during the school day. When we do have major disruptions, we do have steps to remind our principals and administrators of things that they should do. And this is really to make sure that due process is being followed. Last year, we did have incidences where due process was not followed, and students that rightfully should have been suspended and not in school were brought back. And so we're retraining our principals. We've had conversations with them to make sure that all of these steps here listed are done. The work that we're looking to do, we are shifting to make sure that we're giving more autonomy to principals, but with autonomy comes accountability. So we will be checking on the back end rather than the front end, so that we're going through to make sure that due process is followed. Any questions about that? All right, moving on. Alex has several updates, and I know he will walk us through these and answer any questions.
Good evening, board, everyone else in the community watching here. So we have several items that are coming up as information items at our upcoming meeting in October. The first is around advanced placement testing. So advanced placement testing is a very high level. This is courses taught at our 3 Proviso campuses. Upon taking those courses, at the conclusion toward the end of the school year, students take a test, and based on that score, which is rated from 1 to 5, depending on what institution they may go to, they can potentially get college credit for a score on that test. Right now, what we're looking at is we've historically paid for this test. It's around $99 for the exam. There's a slight reduction in about $9, and then there's a fee waiver that's applied later on once all of the students test and working with the College Board to apply that fee waiver. Last year, just at a high level, we paid for 1,666 exams. Of that, there were approximately out of 1,000 students, 1,073. We're looking at just approximately a testing rate around 87%, which is fairly accurate to attendance rates, and looking at that's slightly skewed because students can actually sit for an exam of which they were not actually enrolled in, so the data gets a little fuzzy when you start really diving into it, but a healthy participation rate. We were very, very pleased to see that the percentage of students scoring a 3 or higher did increase for each school. There's a lot more detailed numbers in the actual information item itself if you want to kind of dive into that data, try to look at it based on performance on race, performance by gender, and trying to kind of give you some different looks at that because it does come at a significant cost. Some comparison from last year, I think the board approved around $155,000. We ended up paying around $106,000 for those fees after that fee waiver was applied, so it gives you kind of a little bit of context here. We're going to be asking the board for their approval eventually in November for an upfront potential cost of $148,680. Again, that is before the fee reduction. And again, there's plenty of information in that information item if you care to kind of dive in some more.
Plenty.
Any questions on
I
this?
asked Alex to put in a ton of information, so I apologize. It's like the longest we've ever done. It's about 15 pages. We looked at every single course. We looked at it by race, by gender, by every demographic you can imagine. But one thing I want to highlight here, like, we did see significant increases across our schools, all schools. And so, at East you went from a pass rate or students scoring 3 or 3+ on these tests. So it's a grade scale of 1 to 5. You essentially want to get 3 to get college credit. We went from 15.2% at East to 27.4%, so almost over 80% growth. At West we went from 17.6 to 30.7, 74% growth. At USA we went from 56 to 59, so at 28.4% growth. So I would say, this was money well spent. This is a good indication of the work that our teachers are doing and our ability for our students to rise to the level of expectations I expect us to continue to see these types of increases as we dive heavier into instruction.
At each campus, well attended at each campus, we're very pleased to opt that and kind of just again educate around, because as you'll see now with this item, the level of these advanced coursework opportunities just sometimes can be confusing as to the differences between each of them. So next here we have an information item for you for the dual degree program. So the dual degree program, again, a little different than advanced placement. Dual degree, students apply their sophomore year, and the acceptance of how many students that we accept is kind of based on the language that we approve here. If they are accepted, they attend Triton College full-time their junior year and their senior year. Upon completion in their senior year, they would not only graduate with a Triton Associate's degree, whether it's an Associate's in Arts or in Science, and their high school diploma. So it's a tremendous opportunity that the board is paying for these students to take these courses there. So we have kind of worked with Triton to allow both credit for Triton and for Proviso. So with this item, we're looking at currently expanding this a little bit more. So right now, the first time we offered this opportunity, there were 8 students that took advantage that we approved. We then expanded that to 7 additional students per school. So that's 21 students, gave the opportunity to start that this school year. So right now, that number of students, we're looking at expanding that again to an additional 7 students per school for next year. This does come at a significant cost, and we can kind of get into those numbers. With that being said, we are heavily investing in an opportunity to expand the opportunities for dual credit within our own campuses. We have a very healthy goal of trying to get it to where we can offer the full suite of the 18 courses for an associate's degree right now at Proviso Math and Science Academy. We're working toward that goal. We have a number of teachers that have expressed interest. Right now we have credentialed to teach 10 of the 18 courses right now. We have 18 teachers that have expressed interest. 9 of those 18 have applied. And we're working with the other teachers to kind of finish that application process. Big thanks to Dr. Ortiz and Ms. Marino, who have been working very closely with interest, and to try to kind of continuing the year 2 students and an additional 21 students for starting year 1 next year comes at the cost of $285,134. Any questions around this?
And that's just all straight to Triton. That doesn't, would be a decrease if we were to be in-house? Like, I wanna know the sustainability of this long-term, right?
Yes. It's a very good question. The idea, we would love to have every student, from right now, we're just looking at the Math and Science Academy moving forward, but to allow this opportunity for every student in-house at the Math and Science Academy. So that's something that is our ultimate goal. We know that the biggest hurdle, and there are others, right? But the biggest hurdle is to have teachers that meet that criteria for Triton to basically say that you are a Triton employee and you're getting both Triton credit and Proviso credit. So that is the biggest hurdle
Okay.
right now.
So that cost could decrease if it comes in-house, I guess, is my question.
Yes, so there essentially would be no cost to that because they're outside of paying our own employees.
Yep.
But and we are still working out those details with Triton, but there would be, because they would be taught by our faculty on our campus. So right now, all of these costs are paying for their instructors, their facilities, their usage. That's that whole tuition cost that's incurred. And then feeding them, transporting them, all of these are additional costs that we are incurring for providing these opportunities.
Because would they just like become an adjunct?
We're
Yes.
exploring,
Yeah,
we're
okay.
exploring all that. We're pretty serious about doing this. If you guys approve this personnel report, we would be hiring somebody from Triton that works closely in this space to come in district here to work solely with us to help us move out this.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you.
Right, next is, so now this is dual enrollment. So dual enrollment, these are students that are attending Proviso campus for part of the day and enrolling in classes here for part of the day. And then for the other portion of their day, they are attending classes at Triton. Now, with these opportunities for dual enrollment, these are opportunities in there around nursing, around dental assistance, sports conditioning, physical therapy, criminal justice, firefighting, welding, education, and HVAC. I think if you recall, we did have the first student ever to receive last year that college and career pathway endorsement in criminal justice. That was a huge mark for Proviso. There's some nuances to get that endorsement in there, but it's just an example of something that was provided that someone earned last year. We are not looking at making any expansion within the dual enrollment piece for next year. So last year we approved 120 students, asking for that same ask of 120 students. So that cost there, and then inflation is the same as last year going into this year. It's kind of I think we've reached our capacity of what we can kind of handle to support not only the students, looking at Dr. Ortiz as far as the busing there, and thank you again, Mr. Taylor and Dr. Alvarez for their help with that. We've kind of ironed out some of those, but we think that this is kind of the healthy number with our current staff and what we can manage and support our students at Triton College. All right, next item here is around our meal vouchers. So as you know, we provide lunch and breakfast to all of our students here in Proviso Township High Schools. For our students that are in the dual degree program or in the dual enrollment program that are attending Triton during that lunch hour, we need a means to support them to make sure that they are getting healthy meals and getting fed. So we are working with Triton. They have an outside vendor. They have basically meal vouchers. So these are ways for the students to basically take this voucher and then pay for these meals. It's been a flawless system. It's worked very well. We've gotten great feedback from the students. So the costs you're seeing here would include the increase in the dual degree students and then the potential 120 dual enrollment students for a cost of $1,600 per student. So we're looking at the total cost of $259.
Raise at all, or is it all just the additional heads?
It's just the additional heads.
All right.
For this one. All right. Last one is licenses for Certiport. So Certiport is a kind of a credentialing program that our CTE teachers have access to. This is a way for teachers to engage students in things like Adobe, things like digital literacy, the Microsoft suite, IT specialist, entrepreneurship, some different opportunities to provide some credentialing. I know in a couple of classrooms I've been into, we've actually seen the teachers handing out these certificates when students are completing these opportunities. This is something at Proviso East and Proviso West. Currently, our CTE teacher at the Math and Science Academy is actually using the Proviso East license just to kind of help us out. So they still have an opportunity to have this at the Math and Science Academy as well. The cost is kind of broken down by building there at a total cost of $47,333. Any questions on this?
All right, moving on. So those are all, what we just went through were the information items. We haven't put them in the weekly update. Well, they'll be in the future weekly updates before the October 14th meeting. These are, the next two items are items that you've already seen. Are there any questions about graduation ceremony at UIC? Any questions about the academic program and course catalog? So the next item, this is something that you have not seen, but we are bringing it for approval. And Bill is going to talk about a potential MOA with our union so that we can run like Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Yeah, so with the with our PTU CEA, it provides the opportunity for new clubs and activities to be proposed to the district to run as a stipend and be included into the stipend schedule. So the Dungeons and Dragons Club was proposed by the PTU. It was piloted via a contractual 1 year last year to become stipend eligible. So they had on average around 8 to 12 students each session, with multiple students also entering into the club. Over 20 students engaged throughout the school year, and they did provide the documentation to support the activity and the piloting of that club last year. And so we're bringing that forward for consideration to be included into the stipend schedule moving forward. That club will be offered for the contract at all 3 schools.
What was the most popular class among students?
I'm so sorry.
What was the most popular class among students?
The most popular class?
No. Oh.
Oh, is it D&D?
Yeah. Cards, fire.
We're over 11.
Yes.
As soon as Alex left, I'm like, oh.
Oh yeah, we don't know anything about that. Right. Yeah. I love that. I love the Dungeons and Dragons. All right, Bill, this is our last one.
All right. Oh, and so we will also be bringing, so we're going through our rounds in terms of ensuring that we have contracts as well as special payroll employees. So for 14th board meeting, we'll be bringing forward that next round of contracts.
So it's been a huge undertaking. Thank you, Liz and Bill. In the next couple weeks, we will have contracts for administrators, which is not something Proviso has had in quite a while. So excited about stepping back into some normalcy there. Then moving on to the agenda, approval of the personnel report.
Molly, you want to take attendance?
Oh,
Yes, but, because I don't need that.
Oh, got it.
May I have a motion to approve the September 30th, 2025 personnel report, including the hiring, resignations, separations, stipend positions, and leaves of absence?
So,
Ms. Montenero? Will you please call the roll?
Ms. Molinaro, aye. Mrs. Hickson, absent. Mr. Ocampo?
Aye.
Ms. Morris? Aye. Dr. Fisher? Ms. Birmingham?
Aye.
Ms. Smith, absent. Motion carried.
Any old business? New business? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
so
Ms. Molinaro? Malero, will you please call the roll?
Malero, aye. Ms. Hickson, absent. Mr. Ocampo.
Aye.
Ms. Morris.
Aye.
Dr. Fisher.
Aye.
Ms. Barnham.
Aye.
Ms. Smith, absent. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:23.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Well,